Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we have a story that will leave you questioning everything about trust and relationships. My name is Daniel, and let me tell you, nothing shakes you to your core like realizing the life you built was never what it seemed. I've been working as an electrician for years, doing my best to provide for my wife, Emily, and our 3-year-old son. But lately, I started noticing something strange about Emily's behavior. Whenever I had an unexpected day off or got home earlier than usual, she always had a reason to rush out the door. It was different every time. Grocery shopping, meeting a friend, running an errand for work. But what really stood out was how fast she'd leave, like she couldn't wait to be anywhere but home. At first, I tried to brush it off. She did freelance writing, so her schedule was unpredictable. Maybe she just preferred working from a cafe. But the more I paid attention, the more it stopped making sense. She wasn't meeting with clients. Most of her work was online. There were no deadlines urgent enough to pull her away constantly. And even when she wasn't working, she always had a reason to step out. The pattern became too obvious to ignore. It made me wonder if she acted like this when I was around. What was she doing when I wasn't? So I started watching more closely. Her quick errands would sometimes stretch for hours. When I asked where she had been, her responses were vague at best. And if I pushed for details, she'd snap at me, acting like I was accusing her of something. That was the moment I knew something was off. And I had a feeling I wouldn't like what I found. Instead of confronting her outright, I decided to test her. Sometimes, the best way to see someone's true nature is to let them reveal it themselves. One evening, I sat Emily down and gave her what should have been heartbreaking news. I told her I lost my job, and to make things worse, a bad investment had wiped out our entire savings. No backup plan, no safety net, nothing. The truth, our savings were fine. They weren't even in an account under my name, but she didn't know that. I wanted to see how my loving wife would react when she thought I had nothing left to give. Her reaction, ice cold. No concern, no hesitation. She just looked at me and said, "And what do you expect me to do about it?" No reassurance, no, "We'll figure this out together." I just sat there, stunned. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about herself. She mumbled about how hard things would be for her and our son, never once asking how I was handling it. That was all I needed to see. And from that moment, everything changed. The second she believed I was broke, she dropped the act entirely. She barely spoke to me, unless she needed something for our son. She came and went as she pleased, never bothering to explain where she was. And when she was home, it was like I didn't even exist. Unless I could still be useful to her, I decided to push further. Since I was out of work, we had to rely on her freelance income for bills. The look on her face said it all. She hated the idea. But what choice did she have? I was broke, and she was my wife, right? Some days, she'd bring home money. Other days, she'd claim she had nothing. But I knew that was a lie, because she still managed to buy herself new clothes and get her hair done. And whenever she did contribute, she made sure I suffered for it. She nagged constantly, acting like every single dollar she spent on the house was a personal insult. If the house wasn't spotless, if our son was too loud, if I asked something at the wrong time, she'd lash out. And it wasn't just at me. She even started losing patience with our son. That was when I knew for sure Emily never saw me as an equal partner. In her mind, my only value was in how much I could provide. The second she thought I couldn't, she lost all respect for me. So I let her believe it. I played the part of the struggling husband. I didn't fight back. I let her show me exactly who she was when she thought I had nothing left to offer. And every single day, she made it clearer she never loved me. She only loved what I could give her. Months passed. After all the cold treatment, all the late nights out, and the dismissive looks Emily had given me, she finally sat me down one evening and said something I never saw coming. "I'm pregnant," she announced casually. Before I could even process those words, she hit me with the real dagger. "But it's not yours." She said it like it was nothing, like my feelings didn't even matter. In her mind, she thought I was so desperate to hold the family together that I'd accept whatever she threw at me. But she was wrong. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch between us. Then, slowly, I smirked. "That's funny." She frowned, clearly confused about why I found it funny. That's when I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out a plain white envelope, and tossed it onto the table. "Open it," I said, leaning back. She hesitated, but eventually pulled out the papers inside. The moment her eyes landed on the test results, her entire demeanor changed. The color drained from her face, her confidence cracking for the first time. It was a paternity test for our 3-year-old son, and it proved he wasn't mine either. She stared at the paper as if rereading it would somehow change the words printed on it. Her mouth opened and closed, struggling to find something, anything to say. But what could she say? She had been lying to me for years, and now the truth was out. I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost amused. "So, let me get this straight. You thought you could tell me you're pregnant with another man's child, and did just accept it. Meanwhile, this entire time, I've been raising a kid that isn't even mine?" She stammered, reaching for words, but I cut her off. "You know what's even funnier?" I said, standing up. "I was already planning to leave in less than a week. My company secured a deal overseas, and I'm taking the job." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm done with you," I said plainly. "I was already making arrangements to leave before you even confessed. And now, you've just made it easier for me." Panic flickered across her face. "Wait, what happens to me? What about our son?" She clutched the test results, as if holding on to them could somehow change reality. I let out a small chuckle. "Take him to his real father," I said coldly. "You're an adult. You'll figure it out." Her face crumbled as she realized, too late, that she had played herself in the worst possible way. The next morning, the damage control began. Emily must have spent the entire night thinking about how things had turned against her, because the moment I stepped out of the bedroom, she was already waiting. Her entire demeanor had changed. The cold, distant wife I had endured for months was suddenly gone. In her place was a woman trying to remind me of our past, of our history together. She smiled sweetly, asked if I wanted coffee, and even tried to reach for my hand, gestures that had been non-existent for a long time. I wasn't surprised. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was calculating. The moment I told her my plans, her mind must have raced to what she could do next. I was sure she had considered taking legal action, trying to squeeze as much money out of me as possible. But how far could she really take that? Even if she wanted to drag me to court, she'd need a lawyer willing to fight for her, and that wouldn't be cheap. And her biggest problem? I was leaving the country. Who exactly was she going to manipulate now? Even if, by some miracle, she found a way to come after me legally, what claim did she even have? The child wasn't mine. I had undeniable proof. There was no alimony to fight for, because the evidence of her infidelity was overwhelming. Any judge would see right through her. No, she had nothing. No leverage, no advantage, and no safety net. So, at that moment, her best option was to beg, and she was smart enough to know it. I said nothing at first. I just observed, because I already knew what this was. It wasn't regret. It wasn't love. It was fear. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing what I provided. She knew her new baby daddy had no plans to stick around. So, she turned back to the man she had disrespected, lied to, and cheated on for years. And now, suddenly, she wanted to talk about us. After hearing I was about to get a big paycheck, she started bringing up old memories, the vacations we took, the nights we stayed up talking about the future, the times I held her through life's struggles. But she had already shown me who she truly was, and there was no going back. Emily told me she had made a mistake, that stress and emotions got the best of her, that our family was worth saving. But I had already seen through the act. If I had been jobless and struggling like she thought I was, would she be standing here now, suddenly affectionate? Of course not. She only cared because she realized I had something valuable, an opportunity she didn't want to lose access to. She tried harder. At one point, she even broke down in tears, saying she couldn't raise 2 kids alone, that she needed me. But the truth was, she didn't need me. She needed my security, my money, my stability. She had already made her choice. Now, she had to live with it. I had no intention of giving Emily a chance to make my departure difficult. She thought she had a week left to manipulate me with nostalgia and empty promises. What she didn't know was that my flight was only 2 days away. I had planned everything down to the last detail. Documents secured, tickets booked, loose ends tied up. I wasn't about to let her desperation trap me in a life I no longer wanted. The night before my flight, while Emily lay fast asleep, completely unaware of what was coming, I made my final move. I packed my bags. Most of my important belongings had already been taken little by little over the past few days, so there wasn't much left to gather. No goodbyes, no last words, no final arguments. Just a quiet, deliberate exit. I took one last look at the house, a place that was supposed to be a home, but had become a prison. I was finally escaping. And then, without hesitation, I walked out the door, leaving behind a woman who had spent years lying to me. As the plane rumbled down the runway, the engines roared, the wheels lifted, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I had been holding my breath for so long, pretending, enduring, staying silent. But now, as I watched the city shrink beneath me, I finally let out a slow, steady breath. I was free. Emily had lied to me for years. She had humiliated me, disrespected me, and taken my presence for granted. And for months, I had to play along, acting like I was broken, like I had nowhere to go, like I had no future without her. But the truth was, she was the one who had no future without me. And now, that was her problem, not mine. For a brief second, I thought about her, but there was nothing left in me to feel. I didn't sit there imagining what she was doing, who she was calling, or how she reacted when she found out I had left sooner than she thought. None of it mattered. She could cry, she could beg, she could scheme. I was already gone. I didn't hate her. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't care. And that was the real victory: indifference. I leaned back in my seat and looked out at the sky, at the vastness of it, at the new world ahead of me. No baggage, no weight dragging me down. Just me, moving forward. I wasn't just leaving Emily behind. I was leaving behind the version of myself who once thought love meant sacrificing dignity. That man was gone, and I wasn't looking back. I know there are men out there stuck in the same situation I was in, feeling trapped in a marriage where they're nothing more than a paycheck, an afterthought, a man who is only acknowledged when it's convenient. If that's you, listen carefully. Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't waste your breath trying to get her to see your worth. A woman who doesn't respect you will never truly love you. And if she ever does come back around, it's not because she suddenly realized your value. It's because she realized she's losing her security. The biggest mistake a man can make is tying his entire existence to a woman who wouldn't hesitate to replace him the second things get rough. The moment Emily believed I had no money, her true colors showed. That's when I learned the most important lesson. Love that only exists when you're useful isn't love at all. It's a transaction. And once you see it for what it is, you stop feeling the need to convince her to stay. So if you're in my shoes, stop trying. Instead, plan. Get your finances in order. Protect yourself. Move in silence. And when the time comes, don't make a scene. Just leave. No warnings. No emotional goodbyes. Because the second you show that you can live without her, that's when she'll suddenly want to fight for the marriage. But by then, it won't matter. You'll already be gone. I didn't get revenge. I didn't need to. My freedom was the only victory I needed. And trust me, there's nothing sweeter than knowing you walked away with your dignity while she's left with nothing but regret. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking real-life stories like this. See you in the next one.